Thank you for joining me tonight. Sean Thompson, spiritual counselor and psychic medium, owner of Inner Healing. It is Halloween night, one of my very favorite holidays of the season, of course, as a psychic medium. All the ghost hunting and all the goblins out there just have a story to tell, and so I love being a part of that. Thank y'all so much for joining me. If you have any questions as we get started, drop them in the comment box. I would love to answer them. I am going to be answering a lot of questions today just about what it's like being a spiritual counselor, a psychic medium, what it's like to be a fly on the wall in my world when the lights turn out. So I'm excited about that. It's snowing out. I have this beautiful fire going on, and I can't wait to get started. So first, I kind of want to dive in to have you get to know me a little, to know a little bit about my background, know a little bit about what I do, why I do it, how I do it. So let's get into that. I want you to know that my story kind of goes back all the way until before I was 8 years old. I've always known what I wanted to do, which was be a counselor and help people. Now, back when I was 8, psychologist, counselor, spiritual counselor, psychiatrist, those were all the same thing to me. I didn't really know the difference. All I knew is that I wanted to help people. So growing up Italian and being Catholic, I really was going to church every Sunday, doing catechism, confession, very traditional way of connecting with God and spirit. But there was just something inside of me, a fire that just burned deep inside of me, and I knew there was more than that. But growing up in a traditional way, of course, I went the traditional schooling route. I got my bachelor's in psychology, my master's in counseling from St. Mary's University. My bachelor's was from Texas A&M. And I got my doctorate of divinity from Universal Life Church, which allowed me eventually to do the spiritual work that I do now. So I loved my schooling and my background. I ended up getting a license as a licensed professional counselor. I've been doing that for 20 plus years, although I am not in active status right now, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But it was probably about 2007, I had my spiritual awakening and out-of-body experience where I crossed into the light. I can't wait to share that story with you. It's going to be up and coming, so stay tuned. But at that point, my counseling shifted into a very spiritual and deeper work. I started working with people who had lost loved ones, who wanted to learn how to open up their own spiritual gifts or even start their own spiritual business. And that is the kind of work that I do today. It's mostly centered on intuitive and mediumship counseling sessions, spiritual development. I include astrology and numerology, and I have some amazing programs for people who have lost a loved one and they're still going through the grieving process. They want to learn how to connect with their loved one and stay in that sacred relationship. So I have one program that's called Words Left Unspoken, Healing the Heart After Loss, and I have another one called Life After Death, Permission to Live Again. So those two programs focus on the grieving process, learning how to connect with your loved one and moving forward. I also work with people who are opening up to their spiritual gifts and are awakening, as well as wanting to start their own business. So those are some of the services that I do. But I want to share a little bit of intimate details just about me and who I am and what my world consists of. So I have two amazing children, a boy and a girl. My daughter is extremely gifted. I used to kind of have to wear the foil cap when she was growing up because she knew what I was thinking, how I was feeling, and it was really hard to get away from kind of protecting her from the adult world and what I was going through. And now she's grown up into this amazing intuitive being that I love connecting with. My son is also gifted. He is a Capricorn though, so his emotions are kind of hidden, but he is moving into his own spiritual direction, and I love seeing that. I am married to an amazing man. His name is Brandon, and honestly, he thinks the Let's Go Brandon thing is all about him, but I won't tell him. I won't spoil his bucket of fun for him, but that cracks me up. That's going on, and he gets a kick out of it. But a secret about him is that he is also a psychic medium, and that is one of the things that we connected with about 2012. I think that's when we met, and we knew from the very beginning that we were soulmates and connected. And to be married to someone who is that intuitive and on the same wavelength is incredible, and it just warms my heart. So those are kind of some personal details. I want to go into maybe where my gifts came from, which I think they came from my dad's side of the family. He is very intuitive and just very sensitive. He grew up learning and delving into remote viewing, astro traveling, and got pretty deep in it. And he told me one time that it scared the crap out of him. And he was going so far in his astral travels that he almost didn't come back. And I think he got into the spiritual realm, and it scared him enough to where he just pulled back. But when I was about 40, he opened up to me and told me about some of his gifts, and it really helped me understand where my gifts came from. It does run in my family. I have been intuitive all my life. I have been a medium all my life, but didn't know to what extent until probably around 2007, which I'll get into that. And I was always a little different. It just seemed like I knew more than the average person, and I was very sensitive and empathic and intuitive, and it was overwhelming for me. So going into crowds and hospitals and places that just had a lot of energy, antique stores, was a little bit stressful for me growing up, and I never knew why, because as a Catholic, you don't talk about that kind of stuff. So it wasn't until my older years where I really was doing some spiritual development on my own stuff did I really understand that I was gifted and I was a little different. So it was kind of a lonely world. The friends that I had growing up saw me as a little different. Sometimes I knew things that they hadn't told me, and it freaked them out a little. Sometimes I played tricks on them. I wasn't always, a good little Catholic girl, but it was fun. I got a laugh. Astrologically, my sun sign is a Libra, which means I love beautiful things. I love making people happy and having everybody get along. I am good as a counselor, which is my profession, done that for 20 plus years. And so my sun sign as a Libra complements my moon sign, which is a Cancer. And this is where my intuitive gifts really get to shine. This is where me as an empath and an intuitive, I can be very sensitive and moody at times because I get very overwhelmed by not only my emotions but people as well. And the last one is Aries, which is my rising sign, and it really complements my Libra and my Cancer moon in a way that when I get indecisive about things, I can pull in my Aries, and it really helps me make a decision, take responsibility, kind of take the bull by the horns and go forward on anything that I want to work on, especially in business. So astrologically, I wanted to share my makeup because I think it's important, as you should know yours, because it can really help you when you're dealing with a person or in a job or trying to make a decision if you know what your rising moon and sun sign is. And it can really help direct you on your life purpose and the business direction that you're going into. So I want to kind of move into some questions right now. Again, if you have any questions, put them in the comment box and I will get to them. But I have a lot of people that will ask me specific questions, and so I want to touch on some of those. And one of the first ones is, have I ever not had someone come through in a reading? And I'm going to go out on a limb here and be completely honest and tell you that every time that I have tried to connect with a loved one, they've come through. And not a lot of mediums can say that. I have a direct connection with Source and an agreement that when I bring someone through, it is for healing on a deep level, and it is to bring closure to something that is going on with the person who wants the reading. And so I ask them to come through, and 100% of the time they have come through. But they come through with the most loving messages, and up into this day, and I have done thousands of readings, I have really connected with every spirit that I have asked to come through, and they have come through with healing and love that is so profound that it just makes me grateful every time I have a session. So I have another question here. It says, do you ever get bad information when you're doing a reading? Well, that just depends on what you consider bad. If you're wanting to know if I ever know when a person's gonna die, no, I do not. They do not give me that information. Sometimes I get information about a spouse cheating. Yes, I do get that. Sometimes I get information if you're pregnant and what the sex is. And so some people might not want to know that. Some people might. But as far as getting bad information that would make you scared to get a reading, no, I don't have access to that. Information that would make you stress out about future incidents or events that are up and coming, I don't get bad information like that. If anything, I would get information that would help you on some level. For instance, if you had some heart issues going on, they would suggest that maybe you go and get a doctor to check out your heart, especially if you have it in your running in your family, that you may need a checkup. It doesn't mean that you're gonna have a heart attack and you're gonna die in 2 weeks at 11 o'clock. I don't get that kind of information. And honestly, I wouldn't want that information. So you don't ever have to worry about that coming through in a session. Let's move on to the next question. Have I ever had a bad reading? Okay, so we're being honest. Yes, I have had a bad reading, but let me explain that. I've had maybe 2 or 3 of these. So what I consider a bad reading is when someone comes to me and they want to know some future event or something about their love life or what their life purpose is. And when I channel the highest light and vibration, your higher self, your guides, your loved ones come through. And they share information that would only be for your best interest, and that's going to really help move you to the next level of your soul's evolution. So there were a few times where the information that came through was absolutely beautiful information, and I'm going to give you an example of this. But the way that the person received it was so terrible that it really upset me. It upset the person, but it upset me. And so I want to give you some details of this because it really floored me as a healer and as a counselor. But I understand it. So what happened was this lady, she had one child, and she had been married and divorced, and her child had a handicap. And the handicap caused a lot of financial stress on the woman, a lot of emotional and mental stress because she had to basically do everything for her child, and she couldn't have a social life, so she was home with the child all the time. And what had come through was her guides had said part of her purpose was to give back this lifetime. It was to show and learn love and compassion for other people. And this woman on the outside was absolutely beautiful, stunning, model material. But I came to learn that on the inside, she was really nasty. She was a nasty person. And when I shared this information with her about what her life purpose was and to learn love and compassion for her handicapped child and be able to give back to the world instead of taking, so that she could really get in touch with the beauty inside of her and not have everything be so physical and material. She was so upset with that information, and her comment was, and the other part of the reading that came through was she had asked me about her love life, if she was ever going to find somebody else. And I said, yes, there's going to be two men that come in. One is not going to have very much money, but he's going to have a heart of gold, and he's going to treat you like a princess. And the other man that's going to come in is going to have a ton of money, but he's going to be emotionally abusive. And so that was the other component of the reading that I shared with her. And she got so upset, and basically her response was, so you're telling me I have two choices of men and they're both shit, and the rest of my life I've got to deal with my kid who can't do anything, so I'm going to be stuck in this house caring for him until he's on into his adult world, and so basically I don't have a life. So to me, that was the nastiest response I could ever have, and it just broke my heart, not only for her child, but for the two men that were going to come into her life, because like I said, on the outside she was beautiful, but on the inside she was so ugly. And so I could see why her life lesson was this, so that she could learn what beauty was really about. She didn't want to have any of it. She asked me for her money back. She told me she was going to write a bad review for me, and she worked for a paralegal. And so she was going to sue me if I didn't give her money back. So to me, that was a really bad session. And I was kind of taken aback, but it's not my journey. I'm just the messenger. And it was a beautiful message that I delivered. So that was a moment in time that I just had to sit back and realize that everybody is at a certain place in their journey, and it wasn't for me to judge. So let's move on to another question. How am I different than other mediums? Okay. I absolutely love this question because, and I'm very passionate about the answer to this question too. When I watch mediums on TV, like the Long Island Medium and other ones, I get upset, to be honest with you, because I know a lot of it's Hollywood, but I also know that there are some ethical boundaries there that are crossed for the big wow factor that a lot of mediums do, and it's something that I pride myself that I don't do. And one of the most important things about me and what I do in my spiritual counseling and mediumship is I really want to take the person that I'm reading for to the next level in their understanding of what information they're getting out of the reading. So I'm not here just to give you loving messages. I want you to grow from the session. I want you to have closure from the session. I want you to walk away being a better person. So I take that time with you in the session. And what's interlaced with that is my background in counseling. You know, I have a master's in counseling. I've been a licensed counselor for 20 plus years. You can't take that out of me. So when I deliver a message, I just don't drop a bomb on you. I process it with you. I make sure that you understand it at a deeper level. And so many mediums out there don't. They're just out for the buck. They want to give you sometimes the wow factor or a general message and call it a day. And to me, I think that just shorts you. And so what I have the ability to do is channel higher wisdom and insight, not only from your loved ones, but from your guides and your higher self. And take that information and break it down into the lessons that you're here to learn this lifetime, and go over that with you and make sure that you understand that, because they want nothing more than to help your soul evolve. So those are two of the ways that I'm different. Another way that I'm different is I actually have an education in counseling and psychology. And so when you combine my understanding of the mind and the psyche, and then tailor it in with the spiritual component of your spirit and your connection to the other side, not only do you walk away feeling connected to your higher self and God, you have a deeper understanding of what you're here to learn and what they can help you with. So my education does set me apart from other mediums. Another big component that kind of sets me apart from other psychic mediums is that I've actually crossed over into the light. So a lot of mediums are gifted and they use their gift for the good, but they don't have any personal experience to reference when it comes to what happens when you die. What kind of lessons are you learning on the other side? What does the body and the mind go through after it dies and moves into the light? I actually have been on the other side, and I got to experience what you go through, the life review, talking to the ascended masters and God, and really communing with your higher self. And I'm going to share that story here with you later. So to recap, my education, the fact that I have crossed into the light, my ability to channel higher wisdom. Oh, and also I'm a born intuitive. These are natural gifts that run in my family. I have been gifted all my life, and I use those gifts on a daily basis in my personal world and when I work with people. So I didn't go to a school to learn these and bring them about. This is just something that was natural for me and ran in my family. So I hope that sheds some light on some of the questions that my followers have asked me over the years. So now, cheers. I want to share a spooky story with you. I don't know if you can see my little pup here. This is Chrysocolla Ocean Pearl. She's a Samoyed. Her name means heart healer. She participates in all of my sessions because she brings a lot of love and heart into my clients' lives. And so she's here doing the little interview with me. Lay down, pup. Lay down. Okay, spooky story time. So as y'all know, Halloween's my favorite time, and what does a medium do other than go to haunted houses and go ghost hunting, go to cemeteries, and have a lot of fun with the spirits? My house is haunted. We have, 2 or 3 ghosts in here. They're good ghosts. But I want to tell you about 3 times where I have had a ghostly experience that kind of creeped me out. And what it kind of entails is a ghost crawling into my bed and scaring the crap out of me, basically. So I was staying with one of my friends, and her house was definitely haunted. She only had 1 bed, so we slept in the same bed. It was a big bed. And in the middle of the night, I felt a push on my leg, and I looked over, and she was snoring. It wasn't like she was next to me or moving in the bed or anything, and I thought, oh, that's weird. Well, she had to get up and go to work early, and so I was laying in the bed that morning, still kind of half asleep, and I feel the covers pull off of me. Someone lean over and blow in my ear and say, Sean. And this was before I really had done a ton of ghost hunting. This was my first weird ghostly experience. And I pulled the covers over my head and I started sweating, and I was so scared, and I didn't know what to do. And the temperature just went up under the covers, and then all of a sudden it got really cold, and I turn over and I realized that she was gone. She was at work. This was not her. And all I could do was kind of stress and say, please go away. I don't ever want to see a ghost. So that was my first kind of real ghostly experience. Another one that I had of a ghost crawling into the bed was my husband and I on our anniversary at the Stanley Hotel. We were in room 217, which is the room that Stephen King stayed in when he got the inspiration to write The Shining. And we were in bed, and I think we were about to go to bed, or we had been sleeping a little bit, and we felt, all I can explain is, you know when you're laying in bed and someone crawls in bed with you, and you can feel the mattress kind of go down, and you can hear the crinkly parts of the the covers and you just feel a heaviness or an energy. Well, we both felt that. And all I could say was, Brandon, do you feel that? And he's like, yeah, I feel that. So that was at the Stanley Hotel, which I've had many experiences there. It's up in Colorado. It's where The Shining was inspired, and I'm going to share some more stories with that. The next one, though, is kind of funny. That it's a little embarrassing, but it's kind of funny. So I told you we have some ghosts in our house. Well, I was sleeping in the bed, and it was a while back. I can't even remember if I was married or not, but so I'm being vulnerable here. I'm going out on a limb, but I was having a sexual dream. So I was being like smoozed by this hot Italian guy, and the next thing you know, I feel that feeling. And I couldn't tell if I was awake or asleep, but I felt the feeling of someone crawling in the bed with me and like getting behind me, you know, like when you spoon with someone. And the sexual energy was going on, and it was so intense that it woke me up, okay? So I'm laying there and I'm like, oh, okay, I was just having a sexual dream. That's kind of weird. But the ghost was still in my bed against me. I could feel him and I could feel the energy. And he told me his name, and it was like a Spanish name, like Javier or Rico or something like that. I don't remember what his name was, but he was breathing on my neck, and I started sweating, and I was like, oh, this is so not right. And I was thinking, am I dreaming or is this real? It was definitely real. And so I don't know if I dreamt him into existence, or, which I think this is really what happened, I think he was in my room and he was messing with me, and I incorporated that into a dream, and then it became so real I actually woke up and realized it was really going on. So once I realized that, I was like, oh, I can't have this ghost like trying to make out with me. And I got up and I asked him to leave, and it was just kind of an odd experience. So I've never told that story. It's kind of embarrassing, but things like that do happen, as well as, you know, ghosts trying to kind of infiltrate themselves into your life. And that was one of those experiences that it was kind of interesting, but it was uncomfortable too. Now I want to share one more story before we get into some myths and some benefits and challenges, but I want to share one more story that was pretty monumental for me and my experience as a medium. So as everybody might know, I live in Estes Park, Colorado. It's an absolutely beautiful place, and the Stanley Hotel is a very special place. It's where my husband proposed to me, but it's also a very haunted place. So one night, this was before Brandon and I had gotten married, I was there with one of my friends, and if you know anything about the Stanley, on the third floor, it is known that there are some little kids that run up and down. It's the third or the fourth floor? I think it's the third. Yeah, it's the third. So it's known to have little kids run up and down the corridor of the third floor, and you can hear their footsteps. You can hear them singing nursery rhymes and laughing and playing. And so my friend and I were up there. We were on a ghost tour, and he knew that I was a medium, but I didn't tell anybody on the ghost tour that I was a medium. I just wanted to see if I could have a ghostly experience. So we're all standing there in the group, and all of a sudden I see this little girl, and she's definitely a ghost girl. She's probably about 5 or 6 years old. And she walks up to me, and I'm trying to act as if nothing's going on because I didn't want everybody staring at me and freaking out, and I want to see what she would do. So she comes up to me, and she grabs my left hand, and all you can see is my left hand turn. And my friend was standing next to me, so he saw my left hand turn. She grabs my hand. She says, can I just stand here with you? And I just nodded my head yes. So my friend looks at me, and he's like, what's going on? And I said, okay, well, don't like say it out loud, but there's a little ghost girl, and she's holding my hand. And he's like, what? And I said, do you want to feel her? And what I meant by that was, the temperature changed. It was really cold around my hand, and oftentimes the temperature will change when a ghost is by you. Typically it gets cold, but it can get hot. And he said, yeah, I want to feel it. Well, I wasn't clear in giving him instructions, and he grabbed my hand. And when he did, this shoot of electricity went through him because he basically connected with her while she was holding my hand, and he wasn't grounded or prepared for it, and it scared the crap out of him, and it shocked him. And he yelled. And so I was like, oh shit, and everybody turns around and looks at us, and of course they're like, what happened? And so then I had to tell everybody. I said, there's a little girl here, and she's holding my hand. And at that time, she looked up at me and she said, it's time for me to go play. And you saw my hand just drop like that. And then everybody got silent, and I said, she wants to go play. And she ran down the hallway, and everybody could hear her footsteps, and you could hear music. And so not only did I get to have an experience, my friend did, and everybody in the group got to hear her run away. And so things like that happen at the Stanley Hotel all the time, and that's one of my most favorite stories to tell. So I hope that you enjoyed that story. Now I want to move into some information that as a medium and a spiritual counselor, some of you may know, some of you may have heard other people talk about it, and some of you have no clue the challenges and the benefits that I go through as a medium, or if any of you are gifted, which you may go through as well. So I kind of want to go over those because I think it's important for people to really understand that being a medium is exciting and fun, and you get to connect with ghosts and know a lot of insight information, but it's also a challenge too. So that's what I want to talk about right now. One of the biggest challenges in being a medium is learning the communication of spirit. So if any of you are trying to connect with your loved ones across the veil, or trying to open up your gifts as a medium or intuitive, or really trying to communicate with spirit to gain insight and guidance, this is probably one of the biggest challenges that you're going to go through, and that's learning how spirits communicate. It's not as easy as jumping on a live Facebook feed and just talking, or picking up the phone, or showing up at someone's house. There's a little bit more that goes into it. The way that they communicate are through pictures, through stories, through words, sometimes through symbols. And they can take one word and infuse it with a whole story, whereas we take many words to create a full sentence or a story. So you have to learn the symbols and the pictures that they use in order to communicate something to you. Like oftentimes when I see hearts, it could either mean love, it could also mean Valentine's Day, it can mean a soulmate. And so writing down words and their symbols and kind of learning their language and creating your own dictionary is something that as a medium I had to do throughout the years so that I could get the message right. Because sometimes they will show you something, and based on how you grew up, it might mean one thing to you, but it might mean a different thing to the sitter. So when you're getting information, you have to make sure as a medium that you don't influence the message that you're trying to give. You just oftentimes will say, okay, I'm seeing a red shoelace, or I remember one time I saw Fruity Pebbles, and I was kind of embarrassed to say that, but Fruity Pebbles to the mother who lost her child meant the world, because it was the last thing she gave her child for breakfast, and she never saw him again, and that was his favorite cereal. And so I had to make sure I didn't have a judgment on the picture of Fruity Pebbles that was coming through. And so the communication that they use to be able to bring forth insight, guidance, and loving messages, you have to learn to kind of read through the lines and understand what they're saying. So sometimes that can be frustrating. Another challenge is educating people about mediumship and what it's really about. So what's really frustrating for me as a medium is I will watch these shows on TV where Hollywood has sensationalized medium readings and the wow factor. And so a lot of people will come in and, you know, basically not want to tell the medium anything and want a cold reading to be wowed by the fact that the medium can pick up on their loved one or certain things. And there's nothing wrong with that. I can do that. It's not my favorite way to read. But what happens is people get this mindset that that the medium should know everything and that it could be an automatic connection. And there's so much that goes into it. Your loved ones have to lower their vibration. I have to raise my vibration. You have to be open and willing to receive the information. And all of that has to come together to receive a message. And a lot of people don't realize that. They just think they can show up and the medium's going to tell them everything and should get it right all the time. So sometimes I have to bring them down from the Hollywood wow factor and explain to them, you know, this is really how it works. And that can be frustrating sometimes. Another challenge that I have, this is a big one for me, is finding people who really want to do the work and who can really embrace the information that their loved ones and their guides want to come through with. So a lot of people will schedule a session and they simply just want to know if their loved ones are okay, if they have any messages to give them, you know, if they're with their dog on the other side of the veil. And that's great. I get it. You miss your loved ones and you want to stay connected. But for me, in the work that I do, and not every medium is this way, but I'm just sharing some intimate parts of who I am and how I read. I want to take you to the next level. Your loved ones and guides and higher self know so much and have so much access to the wisdom on the other side, and they want to share it with you to help you in every life lesson and challenge you have in life. And so when I sit down for a reading, it's not just about knowing that your loved ones are okay or that they miss you or that they weren't in pain when they died. It's about what do they have to share with you that can help your life be better, that can help you grow as a person, that can help you understand, you know, what you're here for, what your purpose is, why you're going through what you're going through. They know. They have access to everything. They sit above you and around you, and they know what you're going through. And they've been human. They know how hard it is. These are the kind of things that in the sessions that I do, that they come through and they want to share with you above and beyond what their dog Fido is doing or if they're with them. They want to make a difference. They want to help you. They want to share everything that they have access to with you. And that's the type of mediumship session that I love to do. And so finding the people that will schedule a session and say, you know what, I have an example. Here's one of my favorite sessions that happened recently. One of my clients said that she kind of got written out of the will, and it really upset her, and she was trying to figure out how to approach her family member to do that. And so we talked about the process of the ego, what the ego goes through of entitlement, and how to love someone who cut you out of retirement or something that you were looking forward to, and how to approach them about that. And her loved ones came through and really helped her understand that this was about learning love, compassion, forgiveness, learning that money or someone else's decision or person doesn't define you, and how to work through that ego struggle. And the session was amazing because you could see her soul just open up and go, oh my gosh, I want to be the best person that I can be regardless of what happens with this situation. I want to handle it appropriately. I want to be the bigger person. I don't want to get in the ego tantrum that is building up inside of me. So I love someone who's willing to come to the table and say, I'm struggling with this problem. I need my loved ones and my guides to come through to help me get through it. And you can see their soul evolve. I have a lot of people that will come into a session who have been emotionally, physically, and sexually abused, and their perpetrator comes through and asks for forgiveness or tries to explain what was going on and why it happened. And the healing and the closure that comes from a session like that is powerful. It brings me to my knees every time, because it brings through information that that perpetrator would have never said to them, and the person who was abused may have never thought they would have gotten closure because their perpetrator died or never acknowledged that they abused them. That happens a lot. I don't know if y'all know this, but before me moving into spiritual work and counseling, my specialty was bipolar and sexual abuse. So those are the type of clientele that I would work with. So a lot of my sessions, my medium sessions, involve people who have been abused, wounded healers that have struggled, not being able to make sense as to why that would happen to them, how they can move through it, how they can overcome it. That hero's journey, if you will, that they have to go through in order for their soul to evolve. And when I can get them into a session and someone comes through who has harmed them or hurt them, to offer forgiveness, to ask for forgiveness, to offer information and explanation as to why something like that happened, it's amazing. I'm in tears. They're in tears. And the peace and comfort that comes from it, I could do that all day long and not make a penny doing it, because the value that offers to that person for healing and growth is tremendous. So finding those people who really want to take that extra step by using the mediumship session to heal and to grow is my favorite thing to do, but those people are hard to come from. So if you're one of those people, call me up and let's do some work together, because it's absolutely transformative. One of the last challenges I just want to touch on before we move on to the benefits is, and this was a hard one for me the first time it had to happen. So as a medium, receiving a message from someone across the veil and then wanting me to reach out to one of their loved ones who's still living to give them a message, and that person does not believe or doesn't want to have the message or is scared and thinks mediumship is bad, so they say they don't want to know, or they tell me I'm a quack, and they tell me I'm weird, and so I don't get to deliver the message. I think that's one of the hardest challenges for me as a medium that I have to accept. There's been a couple of times where I have had a dead person hunt me down and say, hey, will you go tell Jackie that I'm okay and that I love her and that I forgive her? And Jackie would be maybe one of my friends or acquaintances. And so I will approach this person and I will say, hey, I know this might sound weird, but I am, a psychic medium. This is what I do for a living. And I actually have a message from your dad. Would you like to hear it? And some people just flat out say, no, I don't believe in it. And I respect that, and I have to just let that be. But it just breaks my heart, because your loved ones try. They move mountains to get you messages, but they can't control, neither can I, if you're ready to hear the message or if you believe. So that's one of the challenges. Now, with all that aside, some of the benefits that make it all worthwhile is the ability to have that direct connection with your higher self, your intuitive self, the angels, guides, the God. That's amazing, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, because it's like having the inside scoop on everything. I mean, wouldn't you want to know what's kind of coming up front and center for you to deal with, or how to work through a certain problem, or know that your loved ones were at the birthday party of your grandchild that they never met? So being able to connect with that energy and that information and that love anytime I want to is what's amazing, and I wouldn't give it up. Another one is helping people. It's what I've always wanted to do. It's my purpose. It's what I'm here for, and I think there's a part of that in every one of us that just wants to help people. So I'm in service work, and that's what I do. And to see the healing and the growth that happens for the clients that I read for or that I work with, spiritual development with, is just a gold mine for me. So helping people is another benefit that I get, and connecting them with their loved ones and guides across the veil. And another benefit is just being in the energy of being awake and acknowledging that we're more than just human beings, we're spiritual beings. That is a huge insight and piece of information that a lot of people these days, they don't realize how powerful they are, how connected they are to God, how their spiritual being is so full of information and guidance that we really have everything that we need within us to get through any problem and to understand anything that's going in our life. And when you start to awaken and realize how amazing and how loved you are and how supported you are across the veil, you'll never feel alone. You realize you're so much more than you ever thought or were taught, and you have a lot to offer in the world. So being connected to the spiritual realm where I'm shown and told and reminded of how beautiful of a person I am warms my heart, and I want everybody to be able to feel that. So I want to move into some questions now. Some of these there's a fly flying around. I love that. We've got fly energy here, so that must be that fly on the wall. That cracks me up. So I want to move into some more questions that I can answer for y'all, and thank you for sticking around, and make sure you drop your questions in the comment box too. So one of the questions is, what is my favorite type of service that I offer? Okay, I have two types of services that I absolutely love. I could do all day long for the rest of my life. One of them is called a 3-pack, and this is, I put this together because I've seen that this provides the most benefit to my clients. So it's 3 50-minute sessions. And if I had my choice, this is what I advise my clients to do with these 3 sessions, although you can do anything you want, but this is what I see my people get the most benefit out of. So if they'll do a 3-pack and include a numerology, astrology overview, okay, so they can learn all about their life path, their karmic lessons, their strengths and weaknesses, the cycles they're in. Use another one of their sessions for some spiritual development based on anything that's going on in their life that they need some guidance on, and then combine that with an intuitive mediumship reading. And so what I see is people, you can do all 3 of those sessions at one time. It's like a 2.5-hour session, and it's packed so full of information that you can really get an understanding of why you're here, what you're here for, insight and guidance from your loved ones and anything that's going on with you in your life, and take all that information and do so much work on your own or continued work in spiritual development. And it's the best kind of bang for your buck, if you will. That's one of my favorite types of sessions to do because it brings in astrology and numerology. It connects you with your guides, your higher self, and your loved ones. And then it also sheds some light on the life lessons that you're going through at the time of the reading. So that's a 3-pack. I love doing those. The other one I love doing is a mediumship session, but it's not necessarily the mediumship session where you just want to check in with your loved ones and see how they're doing, make sure that their passing was good and they were happy with how things turned out in the will, and that their dog is with them on the other side and who was there to greet them. I love doing those sessions, but my favorite type of medium session is when you have a problem that you're dealing with in life and you truly need some guidance and some support and insight from your loved ones, and you ask them to come through in the session to kind of not tell you what to do, but help you respond to that situation you're dealing with in the highest light possible. And they typically will come through with this profound wisdom that really helps you think about who you are, how you act, what you're here for, and what you're here to learn. And you can't write this stuff. You can't make this stuff up. The wisdom that they come through with, it's almost like it's a session like you're sitting in front of God and you're saying, God, what would you have me do? And I'm telling you, they come through with some of the most amazing insight and wisdom and messages that you could ever wish for. That is my absolute favorite type of session to have. It takes the gold star for me. So that warms my heart. Another question. I like this one. Do I see ghosts with my eyes? Okay. So no, I don't, but it is a secret wish of mine. I have tried for many years to see ghosts with my eyes. I have had a few occasions where I have, and I think the reason why I can't master it completely, although I pray for it every day, is this. Everybody knows in my world that I talk to ghosts all day long, every day. I can hear them. I see them with my mind's eye. I communicate with them daily. I do readings. I've been doing readings for 20 plus years. But everybody knows that when I have seen a ghost or think that I am the biggest chicken and I run like bloody murder and I will leave you for dead. And it is true, and I don't know why, but it scares the crap out of me, but I want more than anything to be able to see a ghost with my eyes on a regular basis. I would love to just have them sit in front of me like you would sit in front of me and talk to me, because I'm a visual person, other than trying to transfer the messages from my third eye and my internal hearing to be able to deliver to you. So I want to share this quick story. I know it's not story time, but this has to do with this question. And it's really funny. So there is a very haunted hotel in Arkansas, in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's called the Velda Rose. And my friend and I went to go stay there, and there were only 6 people staying in the hotel. It's one of the most haunted hotels there, and it was being refurbished, and it was in bankruptcy. So we asked to stay on a floor that was haunted. So the guy gave us a room. We were the only people. It was me, my friend, and my daughter. We were the only people on this floor. There was a murder that happened in the room that we stayed in. My daughter was 11 at the time. And so we set our crystals out in the room. We protected the room, and we set our time to go ghost hunting at 2 a.m. So we woke up, and we exit our door, and we go to the elevator, and we look down the hallway, and I see this guy, which was like a ghostly figure, walk from one side of the wall to the other. So like from one room to the other across the hall. And we all saw him, but he didn't look real. And so we thought, he was a ghost because nobody was on the same floor as us. And we were told that. So we walked down the hallway and we knock on the door, no answer. We move the door handle, nothing there. We listen, we don't hear anything, and we start to walk away. And all of a sudden, the door opens, and this guy walks out, and I am pale as a ghost. I run all the way back to the elevator. I am sweating. I am screaming, and I left my friend and my 11-year-old daughter at the door, and I look back, and I realize they're talking to this guy, and I scream down the hall, and I'm like, is he real? And they're like, yes, he's the maintenance man. And I just was like so scared and so frightened and laughing at the same time. So I come back down there, and my daughter, all she said is, you left me. And I said, straight up, I told you if we see a ghost, I can run faster than you. And she's like, that's so not right. So the answer to the question is no, they don't tend to show up for me because I'm a big chicken, although I would like it. Next question, are my gifts always on? This is a great question. So the answer is no, they're not always on, thank God, because if they were, I would probably be a basket case. One of the funny things to that is you would think as a psychic medium, I know things and I know all things, which I don't. Sometimes I could be a total space cadet and not know the basic things that you would think a psychic medium would know, but it's because I don't try to be on all the time. There are times when I'm not trying to know things about people and I know them. There are times when I wish I knew things about people and what they're doing, and there's no way I have no clue about it. So I have learned to turn my gifts off at times, like when I go to get a massage, because when somebody touches me, it transfers energy, and oftentimes I can learn and know things. So when I get a massage, I definitely have to turn my gifts off. I had to learn to turn them off when I used to testify in court when I was as a licensed professional counselor, because it would get too overwhelming for me, so I had to turn my gifts off at that time. And then other times, I really just don't care what's going on with people or want to know what they had for breakfast or if they had sex that day or if they're fighting with their spouse. I don't want to know those things, and so I tend to try and separate my my telepathy and my understanding of what's going on in someone else's world. Last question, why don't I practice as a licensed counselor anymore? The reason why is because when I was doing traditional work, there was so much red tape involved in diagnosing and writing notes and not being able to share personal stories and having a treatment plan and only being able to work with someone for so long that I really thought that it set people back and didn't really give them the opportunity to take their spiritual and soul personal work to the next level. And so I wanted more, not only for myself in doing the work, but also for my client. And so when I opened up into doing more spiritual work, it just gave me a lot more flexibility to go deeper with my clients, to establish a deeper connection with them, and to go outside the traditional realm and move more into the out-of-the-box information that's accessible to us as a spiritual being versus just traditional human psychoanalysis, if that makes sense. So let me check the time here. Let's see what time it is. Okay, so we're about an hour in. I have a few more things I want to go over. I'd love for you to stay connected with me a little bit longer. I have a spooky story that I want to share with you, and then I want to kind of go over some of the myths about mediumship that you may or may not know. I want to share some tricks of the trade and some tips on what's going to give you the best possible reading if you're wanting to schedule a session. And then I have one more special story that I want to share with y'all about when I went into the light, what I learned, what I came back to teach and share with everybody. So the story that I want to share with you right now is the first mediumship experience that I had. And this one's kind of spooky, and it's real, and it's pretty amazing how spirit works on the other side. So back in around 2006, 2007, I had been doing readings on the side, but I hadn't officially come out as a spiritual counselor and psychic medium. I was just doing traditional work. Well, I was living in Texas at the time, and I went for a walk on the dam, and I was all by myself, and all of a sudden, I heard somebody calling my name, and they said, "You have to go to the judge. It wasn't a suicide." And so, you know, this wasn't new to me. It was a little shock because I had never really had a spirit just come out and be blunt and say that and kind of walk up behind me and start talking to me. So of course I turned around, like, who's talking to me? And I realized, obviously, it was a spirit who was trying to get some resolution to something terrible that happened. Well, so as I'm finished walking the dam, she shows me what she looks like. She's in a yellow bathing suit. She has long brown hair. Her name is Sandra. And she starts telling me what happened. And she says, my death wasn't a suicide. It was a homicide. And she starts telling me the details. And she says, you have to go to the judge and let the judge know it wasn't a suicide, it was a homicide. So I'm thinking to myself, oh, I am not going to the judge of our town and telling her a dead person's talking to me about a homicide case when I'm over here doing traditional counseling and trying to stay in my little box because I lived in a small town. And so she haunted me for 3 days in the shower, 2 a.m. at night, dinner time, on the toilet. I couldn't get away from her. And so I finally said to her, look, and there's nothing like arguing with a dead person, right? I finally said to her, look, if you want me to go to the judge and out myself, you have to send me a sign and make it abundantly clear that I'm not going to be seen as a kook in my town. She said, fine. The next day I went to my office and this lady stopped in. And it was very apparent to me that she wanted to schedule a session, and I thought she was bipolar just because she was rambling and she was definitely in a manic state. So I invited her in. I talked to her for a few minutes, and I asked her if she would like to schedule a session, and she said, oh no, I was on my way to the judge's office to pay a ticket. And then she says, and did you know that lady that drowned in the lake, she was really good friends with the judge? And then it goes silent. And she goes, okay, well, I gotta go. And she left. And I thought, okay, I got the burning bush sign that I need to really go and talk to the judge about the situation. So I go over there and I talked to the judge and I said, look, I know it's gonna sound crazy, but these are the gifts that I have. This is who's coming to me with some important details about a case, and I need to share them with you. And the judge leans over, and when she does, I see a picture of this lady, this deceased lady, talking to me, stuck on the wall behind the judge. And so obviously, they knew each other, they were friends. So I felt a little bit safer. But anyway, I shared with the judge the information she gave me, and the judge said, how did you know that? Like with that kind of attitude of, how do you know that? And I'm like, well, I know it because she's right here. She's telling me there were 3 guys. They made it sexual advances. They were smoking pot and drinking. The girl said no. They pushed her over. She couldn't swim. She drowned. And they said it was a suicide, but it wasn't. It was a homicide. And long story short, they nailed the 3 people and closed the case as a homicide. That was one of my first experiences doing a mediumship reading where I worked, I guess you could call a homicide case, where the person across the veil came and helped me close their case. And it was amazing, but it was scary as all get out in the beginning because I had to be vulnerable enough to share and say, hey, I'm talking to the person who's dead. So that was kind of an interesting story. Now, let's move into some of the myths, because a lot of people, they want to have a medium reading, but they're scared. They've heard things, they've read things, and they have opinions about mediumship and connecting and communing with the dead that I really want to shed some light on. So one of the first ones is that mediums are all-knowing. This is an absolute huge myth. Although I am telepathic and intuitive and connect with people across the veil, I don't know everything. I don't know some of the basic stuff. Sometimes when someone wants a reading, I don't know the person's first name. I might have to ask you what that first name is, or what they did for a living, or even how they died. Sometimes they don't share that stuff with me, and sometimes they do. I don't know everything about their life or your life when you're coming in for a reading. So, for me, and every medium is different. For me, I will ask to see a picture or a first name. It's extremely helpful so that I can really get to the message that your loved ones want to share. It's not that I'm fishing for information. I don't look you up on Facebook, although there are some charlatans out there and they will do that. I'm not in the business to do that. I'm in the business to help and heal, and so I kind of want to go straight to the point of what I can help you with, and if that means me asking some questions that will help me get to that point, then I'll do that. But a lot of times people think that because we have access to the other side and to additional information, that we know everything about you and know everything about your loved ones across the veil, and it really doesn't work that way. I don't know the lottery tickets, I don't know, if someone's going to break up with you, or all the time if you're going to get that job or not, and sometimes I do. I know what Spirit wants me to know, and then I know the academic aspects of it too that I share with you. So another myth is that loved ones get tired of you always calling on them. That is so not true. If you need the burning bush 100 million times, they will give you the burning bush. What they don't want to happen is you constantly putting your life on hold to connect with them or to make sure they're happy on the other side or agree with what you're doing. They know and they want you to live your life with them beside you, but not constantly connected, because it distracts you from actually doing the work that you need to do. But never in a day have they ever said, can you please tell her to stop talking to me? Or I don't want to have a session with her, or I'm too busy, or they just don't do that. They always want to hear from you and help you and give you messages. Another one is that mediumship is unchristian-like, or it's wrong, or it's bad. This is very untrue. It's something that I struggled with growing up as a Catholic as well, knowing that I had gifts and I could communicate across the veil, but it not being supported in the religious sector. And to be honest with you, back in 2016, the Pope actually gave permission for mediums to do readings if it was with the intention to help people heal. And a lot of people don't know that because they don't do it, they don't put it out there in the public. But it's not wrong. If you think about it, you pray to God and the angels, and your loved ones, when they die, they go to where God and the angels are. So why wouldn't you be able to talk to your loved ones or the angels or the ascended masters or your higher self or God just like you would any of them? They're all in the same house, and so they're all accessible, and especially if you're doing it with good intentions. So it's not a bad thing. I was shown that when I crossed into the light, and I've had to overcome that. Can you all see the fly here? I love that, fly on the wall. So that's another myth that I just kind of wanted to bust out. Another one is that your loved ones are too busy. A lot of people will say, I had a medium tell me that my loved ones were too busy to come across and talk to me, or that they were in limbo, or they just weren't available, or they didn't want to talk. Very untrue. On the other side, they are pure energy and consciousness, and they have the ability to be multiple places and know everything all at the same time. So it's not like here where there's only one of me and I can only be sitting here talking to you and not multiple places at one time. On the other side, they have that ability. So don't let anybody ever tell you that your loved one is too busy to come through and that's why they can't connect with them. It's simply not true. Maybe there's just not a good connection. Maybe the medium is tired. Maybe you're tired or scared or blocked. There will be something else going on other than them not having the time to come through to you. And the last one is that you have to be born with the gift in order to connect with your loved ones. You can actually learn mediumship and how to connect. Everybody is born with the gift. Often people shut it down when they're younger, or they just don't work that muscle to expand it into their adult world, but you can definitely be taught. You can go to school for it. I teach a course called Mediumship Unveiled that teaches you how to connect, or you could work with me personally and I can help you open up to those gifts. And so it's definitely something that you can learn. Now, moving into some tips that I want to share with you, kind of some words of wisdom when you are going into a session to help you get the most out of that session. And a lot of people, a lot of mediums will tell you some things that will help. And they do help, but if you're scared or too skeptical, it will shut that energy down. So I want to go over some of those tips with you. So one of the biggest tips that I could give you is really about testing the medium and about being skeptical. So it's good to be conscious and skeptical. You don't want to get swindled. There are a lot of charlatans out there, but you don't want to go into the session and put the medium's ego to the test, because when a medium is trying to connect with your loved ones and guides, they're using the right side of the brain, the intuitive side of the brain that connects with subtle energies. And when you go in and say, well, can you tell me what my father's dog's name was? Well, you already know that. And what's going to happen is you're going to engage the ego of that medium, because they're going to want to please you. They're going to want to tell you the answer. They're going to want to get it right for you. So they go into a thinking mode instead of a receiving mode. And so the best thing to do is to go in with an open mind, ask questions that are going to really help you grow as a person and move forward, not test them with questions like, can you tell me what I said to them on their deathbed? Can you tell them to tell you what I said? That is a really hard question to answer, because I would immediately go into guessing or wanting to get that right, when the way that I receive information as a medium is based on what your loved one wants me to know, not necessarily all the time something that you already know. So another tip is to understand that every medium is different. So there will be some mediums that you can go and schedule a session and you don't have to give them any information, and they can do a cold reading and come up with general things and specific things to share with you. There are other mediums that do better if you give them a little information and it just opens a portal up. There are some people that use tarot cards, some people that use crystals and tools for their readings. I don't use anything. I don't prefer to do a cold reading. I tend to like to have a picture in the first name and the relationship of the person to you. When I know that, I can connect with their energy. And if it's not strong and I ask you a few questions, it like blows the door wide open and then they won't stop talking. I know that about myself. So, it's good for whoever you're going to have read for you, know what their strong suits are, who have integrity, who are honest, and for you to trust that they're going to deliver loving messages in the person who you want to connect with. So another important thing for you to do when you're scheduling a reading is to define your intention. One of the hardest things for me as a medium to do in a session is provide amazing information to you if you come in and don't have an intention. So if you schedule a session with me and you just say, I just want to hear what they have to say, you're probably not going to be pleased when you end the session, because there's going to be a lot of general information that comes through. And when I say general, it's powerful, but it's general. All your loved ones want to do is tell you that they love you, that they're around you, that they're okay, they're safe, they're happy, that you're doing good, they're proud of you. You're going to hear a lot of those things because that's what's important to them. If they had a chance to tell you what they wanted to tell you, that's what they'd say to you. But if you really want some meat and potatoes, let the reader know. This is what I want. I need help with this problem. Or why did they do that when they were here? Or can they shed some light on this specific situation I'm going through? Those typically end up being the best readings because you're presenting with a problem and they want to come through and help you with it. So another tip is understanding the value of the session and what you can gain from it. So my best advice is when you're going to spend a lot of money to go into a mediumship session. I mean, I charge upwards of $350 for a session. There are some people that charge $20, and it doesn't mean that, you know, I'm better than them or they're better than me. But typically you're going to pay for the value of what you get. When you're going to spend that kind of money, you want to really get something out of the session that is going to take your soul development to the next level. Whether it's how to work on forgiveness, whether it's needing compassion in a certain situation and them shedding some light on the dynamics of something that's happening in your life. You want to get a solution to a problem that you're working on. If you want a quick check-in with them of, hey, how are you doing? Was your passing okay? Did grandma meet you across the veil? Go to someone who's going to charge you $20, $30 for a quick session to get that information, to bring that peace and comfort to your heart. So if you're needing that closure to move on, it can benefit you. If you're really wanting to do some heavy work and have your loved ones help you through that, that's the type of session that I do. You're going to pay for that, but you're going to walk away free. You're going to walk away with closure. You're going to walk away with peace and comfort in your heart, knowing that, knowing some depth of some things that were unspoken maybe before they died. So understand really what you can get out of a session and make the most of it. Lastly, a lot of people want to know when to schedule a session. I get asked this all the time. You know, how long do you have to wait after the person dies before you can schedule a session? You can schedule it immediately. There is about a 3-day window for them to have their life review, for them to cleanse their energy and move into the light. So I would say honor that 3-day window, but you don't have to wait a month or a year to connect with them. I've actually done readings as someone was passing. I've done readings immediately when they've passed. And so they can come through, they will come through. There's no direct rule. But don't ever let anybody say that they won't come through right after they die, because that's really not a truth. But I do say give them the respect of that 3-day window. So I want to share one last story with you before we wrap it up. And this is probably the most important and powerful and special story. It's not a scary ghost story, but it's a story of when I crossed into the light. And it was definitely a catalyst for me moving from traditional counseling to spiritual counseling and mediumship. And I was going through a lot of hardship in my life. I was meditating and doing spiritual development and yoga and really wanting to take my spiritual practice to the next level. And what happened is I went to bed one night and I woke up in the light. And all I can say is, if you've read a lot of out-of-body experiences or near-death experiences from people who have had them, they will all tell you pretty much 90% of the time what happens, which is what I'm going to share with you. When you go into the light, you automatically know where you are. You know you're in the light. You know you're in the presence of God and ascended masters. And the unconditional love that you feel when you're in the light is undeniable. So when I crossed into the light as an Italian Catholic, when I got there, I dropped onto my knees and I'm like, oh my God, Hail Mary, our Father, I know where I'm at. I don't belong here. I have stolen gum. I've lied. I've cheated on my boyfriends. You know, it was like full confession. And all I felt was this beautiful love come over me, and this ascended master grabbed my hand and said, that's not why you're here. come with me. And so, I was like, yes, okay. So I went, I had a life review. I got to see what was going on in my life, the things in the past and the present and the future. And then I was asked if I would like to take my work, my purpose here to the next level. And of course, I said yes. And at that point in time, they said, okay, but your world is going to change, your life is going to change in good ways, but it's going to be hard at first. And they showed me that part of my work was to be a psychic medium and a spiritual counselor and help people, one, who are grieving, move through their loss, teach people how to connect with the spiritual realm, and teach them spiritual lessons for their soul development. Beyond just traditional counseling work. And so I was all for it. I was excited about that. But then what they said was, in order to do that, my world is going to completely change. And it's like they opened up a movie theater and showed me how my life was going to change. I was going to get a divorce. I was going to have a huge legal case brought against me. I was going to move. I was going to shut my practice down. And I was going to go through a bout of depression. So I was like, oh no, I don't want that. And talk about arguing with God. It was like they said, well, you have a choice. You can stay here or you can go back and do the work. Whatever you want to do, there's no judgment in that. The guilt that I felt in knowing that if I didn't come back and do this work, how many people I wouldn't be able to help. How many readings I wouldn't be able to connect loved ones to. It just devastated me, and I couldn't think about that. So I agreed, and I came back down, and they told me, they said, there's a few things we want to tell you. There's 3 questions that you need to live by, and you need to share this with people. And this is going to be in your life review when you die, so listen up. And they also told me that when I, came back, I would only remember about 10% of what I was shown on the other side. But when I needed it, I would channel and download information that I needed for every person I was helping in reading and counseling, as well as for my own life. And so the 3 questions that they said to me are these, and they said, this is the only thing that matters in life. One is, how did you love yourself? The good, the bad, and the ugly. How did you love others? People that you loved and people that you hated. How did you love them? And did you make a difference? And it's not monumental difference in the way that we know it. The smallest measure of compassion that you could express can equal the biggest Nobel Prize that anybody has ever received. So if you saved a turtle's life from going across the road and you saved someone from jumping off the bridge, you still saved a life, and that's all that mattered. It made a difference. So in those 3 questions, they said, if you will live your life by this and share with people for them to live their life by these 3, you can make a difference in the world that just will impact it beyond what you can believe. And so, I was all in. I come back. It was amazing. My husband looked at me and he's like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? And I said, you'd never believe me if I told you. And he said, try me. So I did. I told him, and I was in the love vibration. Everything was love, love, love. And he said, you're right, I don't believe you. You're kind of batshit crazy. And from that point on, my world just fell apart. We got divorced. I relocated. I shut my practice down. I was depressed. I hired a mentor for 3 months, worked with him 3 times a week over the phone, never even met him. And my life changed. And every day that I thought I couldn't go a step further, my guides would come through and remind me of the love on the other side, tell me what I needed to do, and put someone in my path for me to help or to help me until I got back on track. And from that day on, I put my traditional license In inactive status, I hung my shingle on the door, spiritual counselor, psychic medium, took the leap, and I've been doing it ever since, and it's been the most fulfilling journey in my life. And so that story is amazing. It's critical to my purpose, and it's what I'm here for. So I just wanted to share that with you. Now, I want to answer a few more questions before I wrap it up. And again, if you have any questions, put them in the comment box. I would be happy to answer them, and I'm so grateful for those of you who have stuck around. So one of the questions is, what does someone do after they lose a loved one? How do they process their loss? What's the best way? So in my opinion, I worked with traditional counseling in grief and loss, just doing traditional work, and that definitely is a healer of the mind. It takes care of all the mind drama that goes on when you lose somebody. How am I going to make it? I'll never see them again. I'm nothing without them. I never want to love again. All that stuff, the counseling aspect helps. But as a medium, what mediumship does is it helps heal the heart. And so what I've learned is when you combine the two, and it's spiritual counseling and mediumship, when they come together, it heals the mind and the heart. And that's where you get the true transformation, because you're not only able to understand the grieving process and what it's going to take to get back on track, you can actually connect with your loved ones and resolve some issues, or say those goodbyes, say those I love yous, and know that they're okay and they're right by your side, and they can help you. It's not just the counselor helping you. It's your loved ones coming through, shedding light on situations that you thought you might never get to resolve. And the other thing too, this really came to light in a session the other day, and my husband and I were talking about it, and he said, do ghosts, do the spirits need therapy too? And I thought about what he said, and he was so correct, because it's not just about the healing that you need to do. When your loved one crosses, and let's just say they've hurt you, they've harmed you, they didn't get to say I'm sorry for something. When they cross, they have work that they have to do in the spirit realm as well, on their soul, for their soul's evolution. And when they're not able to connect with you, which mediumship allows, they're stuck dealing with the problems that they have to resolve, the karma that they have in order to move up a level. But when you're strong enough to have a mediumship session and bring in the counseling component of it in the session, let's just say, if you were sexually abused by your father dies, you have a session and your father comes through and wants to offer an apology or acknowledgement. For your soul's evolution to be able to step outside of your ego and gift that forgiveness to him, not only does it heal you, but it heals him on a karmic level as well. That's huge. So, this work that I'm doing is not just about the human lives that I'm helping. It's also about the spiritual lives that I'm helping too. And it's kind of like both of y'all get your wings. And where you're going to reap the benefits of that is the peace that you have here. And when you die and you're asked, how'd you love yourself, others, did you make a difference? And then when you craft your life again, you can kind of check off some karma there for when you come back and you don't have to live that lesson again. So that's huge. I love that. So combining counseling and mediumship together is the best way to deal with loss, in my opinion. The second question, what secret wish would I use my gifts for if I had a chance? Okay, well, I'll tell you. So I would love, if I had a wish that I could use my gifts, this is what I would use it for. I would love to work on cold cases that involve murders and serial killer cases, with the intention of working with a deceased spirit who was murdered and having them basically solve their case, bring me details, work with the police department, the FBI, to solve the case, bring the murder to justice, and then work with the families for closure. Last question of the night. Have I ever had a bad experience with a spirit? Yes, I have. Now, I only work with the light. I don't do black magic. I don't, work with bad and evil energies, but I did have an experience when I first started out. I had a client come in. This is when I first was transitioning between traditional counseling and spiritual counseling, and she told me that she felt that she had an attachment, that a ghost was attacking her at night. I saw her 3 times. Each time she came in, she had scratches all on her arms, on her face, and I definitely knew that it was a negative, evil spirit that was trying to take control over her, and it was getting worse. I'm not in this work to deal with poltergeists or evil spirits. I do help people into the light, and I do clearing houses, but I choose not to work with shadow people or spirits that want to do harm to other people. So I referred her to the Catholic priest in our town, which he did an exorcism on her, and was able to release the evil spirit or the demon that was with her. And then I continued counseling with her afterwards, in which everything was good. So that was a pretty scary experience. It shed the light for me in knowing that there are bad things out there. It's not just, unicorns and butterflies in the spirit realm. And there are people, thankfully, that work in that area. But I want everybody to be able to connect with their loved one and to work on that deep inner healing if you have lost someone and you're struggling. So ask me about my programs. I would love to work with you. Check out my website, which is innerhealing.biz, and that has all my services on there that you can go and see what would be right for you. You can follow me on Facebook at innerhealing.biz. You can join my Conversations Across the Veil private Facebook group where I talk about how to connect with your loved ones. We talk about signs your loved ones give you in any and all kind of spiritual development. So I would love for you to join that group. And I do have an Instagram as well. It's Seasons of a Sage. You can follow me on Instagram or YouTube. I always post videos on YouTube that will help take your spirit to the next level, teach you some things about spirituality, the awakening process, mediumship. If you ever want to do any of that kind of work or have questions related to that, please reach out to me. I'm always here to support and help you. My email is shawn@innerhealing.biz. So one way or another, you can get in touch with me. But overall, I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I hope that I answered some questions, not only about mediumship and spiritual development, but answered some questions about who I am, about what's important to me, about why I do the work that I do. And if you have anything that you want to know about, please reach out to me. So I hope that this was enlightening, and I hope you have a spooky but wonderful Halloween. Love y'all.